Today we are going to study one of the most important literary concepts for competitive examinations, allegory. This topic is not only asked in MCQs, but also in short notes, long answers, and comparisons like allegory versus symbol. So, please listen carefully. By the end of this lesson, you will understand allegory so clearly that you will never forget it. Definition of allegory. First, let us understand what allegory means. An allegory is a narrative mode. That means it is a way of telling a story. In an allegory, characters, actions, settings do not remain just characters, actions, or places. They stand for abstract ideas or moral qualities. So, an allegory always has two levels of meaning. Literal meaning, the surface story. Symbolic meaning, the deeper idea hidden inside. Now remember this exam formula very carefully. Allegory equals extended metaphor plus personification plus moral or intellectual purpose. This one line can easily fetch marks. Let us look at authoritative definitions. Cudden says, an allegory is a narrative in which abstract ideas are personified and represented symbolically. Fletcher gives a very famous line. Allegory says one thing and means another. This line is extremely popular in exams. Please memorize it. Origin of the term. Now let us see where the word allegory comes from. The term comes from the Greek word, allegoria. It is made of two parts. Allos, meaning other, agoruing, meaning to speak openly. So, the literal meaning of allegory is, to speak otherwise, or, to speak in another sense. What does this mean? It means the writer does not say things directly. Instead, the writer hides meaning behind a story. This phrase, to speak otherwise, is very frequently asked in MCQs. Historical context of allegory. Now let us trace allegory through history. A. Classical period. In the classical age, allegory was mainly used for philosophical teaching. The best example is Plato's Allegory of the Cave. Here, Plato explains knowledge versus ignorance, appearance versus reality. So allegory becomes a tool to teach philosophical truths. B. Medieval period. Golden Age of allegory. This is the golden age of allegory. Allegory was mainly used to explain Christian theology. It was connected with biblical interpretation. There were 4 levels of interpretation: literal, allegorical, moral, tropological, anagogical. Together, these 4 levels are called quadriga. This is a very important exam term. See Renaissance. During the Renaissance, allegory was used for moral instruction, political criticism. Edmund Spencer perfected moral and ethical allegory. D. Enlightenment. In this period, allegory declined. Why? Because writers focused on reason, logic, realism. Modern and postmodern period. Allegory returns again, especially in political allegory, dystopian fiction, existential writing. So allegory never dies, it only changes form. Classification of allegory. Now let us understand the types of allegory. 1. Moral allegory. This type teaches ethical values. Example: every man here. Characters represent virtues and sins. 2. Religious, biblical allegory. This type explains Christian doctrines. Best example: The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. 3. Political allegory. This type criticizes political systems indirectly. Example: Animal Farm, which represents the Russian Revolution. 4. Philosophical allegory. This explores deep philosophical ideas. Example: Plato's Allegory of the Cave. 5. Psychological allegory. Lesser known but important. This represents inner mental conflicts. Kafka's works often fall into this category. 6. Historical allegory. Historical events are shown symbolically. Example: The Fairy Queen, where Elizabeth I appears as Gloriana. Features, characteristic of allegory. Now let us look at the core features of allegory. These points are must memorize. Abstract qualities are personified. There are 2 levels of meaning, literal and symbolic. Allegory is didactic, meaning it teaches a lesson. Symbolism is consistent throughout the work. Characters are types, not individuals. Very important exam tip. Allegory is a sustained or extended metaphor, not just a single symbol. Major practitioner and texts. Now let us see important writers and texts. Classical, Plato, Allegory of the Cave. Medieval, Everyman, Anonymous. Dante, Divine Comedy, multi-layered allegory. Renaissance, Edmund Spenser, The Fairy Queen. Sir Philip Sidney, Defense of Allegorical Poetry. Puritan Age, John Bunyan, The Pilgrim's Progress. Modern, George Orwell, Animal Farm. William Golding, Lord of the Flies. Kafka, The Trial, Ambiguous Allegory. Allegory vs symbol. Now a very important comparison. One-line exam answer. Allegory explains, symbol suggests. In allegory, meaning is fixed and clear. In symbol, meaning is open and suggestive. Allegory vs parable vs fable. Allegory is long and complex. Parable is short and moral-based. Fable uses animals and ends with a moral. Remember, all allegories are symbolic, but not all symbols are allegorical. Now let us look at the critical views on allegory. Critics have mixed opinions about allegory. On one side, some critics argue that allegory can become too rigid and mechanical. Since characters represent fixed ideas, they often lack psychological depth and realism. Because of its strong moral purpose, allegory is sometimes seen as overly didactic, meaning it teaches too directly. On the other side, many critics defend allegory. They say allegory is extremely useful because it clearly explains abstract ideas like sin, faith, power, or corruption. It also allows writers to criticize politics and society indirectly, especially during times of censorship. So, critics finally agree on one thing: allegory always stands between art and instruction. This slide highlights some important hidden facts about allegory that are very useful for exams. First, allegory often flourishes during periods of censorship. When writers are not allowed to speak openly, they use allegory to hide criticism inside stories. Second, allegory helps writers avoid direct political attack. They can safely convey dangerous ideas by saying it is only a story. Third, remember that allegory came before symbolism historically. This is a common MCQ trap. Next, medieval drama is largely allegorical. Morality plays used abstract characters like truth, death, and good deeds. Finally, many allegories use a journey motif, where the physical journey represents moral or spiritual progress. This slide is meant purely for quick revision and MCQs. Please remember these facts exactly as they are. Allegory literally means to speak otherwise. Best example of religious allegory: The Pilgrim's Progress. Elizabeth I is allegorized as Gloriana. Allegory of the Cave belongs to Plato. Animal Farm is a political allegory. These questions often come directly without change, so memorize them. To conclude, allegory is a powerful literary mode that converts abstract ideas into concrete stories. Through allegory, writers from different ages have expressed moral, religious, political, and philosophical truths, often indirectly. Thus, allegory proves that literature can teach, criticize, and reveal truth while speaking symbolically.